And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, April 14th. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into all that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining. Between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers, we appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day. So any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. We are going to talk about the updated standings in the NBA. We'll talk about where everything currently sits as we approach the play-in games now, what happened over the weekend, and all that. So that's how we're going to start off the show today. Then in the second part of the show, I know we brought it up briefly last week on the show, but we're going to talk about the impact of the Browns signing Joe Flacco and, well, the impact that it has on the draft. Because I think with this signing, I think this isn't indication that Browns could be just taking best player available and then maybe taking quarterback later in the draft. So we'll get into all that in the next segment. Then we will also talk about Derek Carr in the third part of the show because there was news last week that his shoulder injury that he's dealing with right now, could potentially jeopardize his entire 2025 season, which would leave the Saints in a spot where they need a quarterback to start next year. So we'll talk about that. We'll also get into recapping the games over the weekend in Major League Baseball, where the standings are currently. And then in the final part of the show, we will continue our division rankings post free agency. Today we'll be covering the NFC West. So let's get into the first topic, which is going over the NBA standings, where they are currently, and what play-in games, what play-in matchups we will be getting. So, NBA regular season concluded yesterday, and we'll start off with the Eastern Conference because we want to save best for last. So right now, in the Eastern Conference, the Cavaliers are the number 1, the Celtics are the number 2, the Knicks are the number 3, the Pacers are the 4, the Bucks are at the 5, and the Pistons are at the 6. So we know what the 3, 6, and 4, 5 matchups are going to be. All right, you got the Knicks taking on the Pistons. That game will be on Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time at Madison Square Garden. TBD on whether I will be in attendance for that game or not. Pacers and Bucks is a rematch from last year in the first round. And the Pacers were really without Giannis for that series. He got hurt in that series. Did he even play in that series? I don't even remember. But needless to say, that will be the matchup, a rematch of last year's first round matchup. And I was looking to see if there's any reports on Damian Lillard. So there's a report here, more optimism about Dame returning for the playoffs. So it says at some point during the playoffs. So he might not be able to come back for the first round. So, the Bucks got to hope that, they advance and, he comes back then. But it's that's going to be a tough matchup for them. The Pacers, obviously from watching the playoffs last year, know them well. They're a good team. And obviously they beat the Bucks last year. So, they could do it again, but now the Bucks have Giannis. They got Giannis, but no Dame, as opposed to last year where they had Dame but no Giannis. So, but then you got the Knicks and the Pistons in the first round, and the Pistons went 3-1 against the Knicks this season. So, there's a potential upset there. There's a lot of people that are leaning on taking the Pistons over the Knicks in this series. Obviously, for me, I'm still going to lean towards the Knicks, but that's going to be a good series. I think these two series are going to be good. But then now let's get into the play-in because that's what I said we were going to talk about. So the first matchup is going to be tomorrow. You got the Hawks and the Magic. And then you have on Wednesday, you got the 9 and the 10 seeded teams. The Heat and the Bulls will be playing against each other. That'll be on ESPN. That's on Wednesday. So that's in the Eastern Conference. Then we move over to the Western Conference. All right, you got the Thunder, the Rockets. Well, the Thunder at the 1, the Rockets at the 2, Lakers at the 3, Nuggets at the 4 seed, Clippers 5, the Timberwolves are the 6 seed, Warriors are the 7 seed, Grizzlies the 8th seed, Kings are the 9th seed, and the Mavericks are the 10th seed. So we have, in the first round, the Lakers will be taking on the Timberwolves. That's going to be an interesting series. And then you got the Nuggets and the Clippers. These are 2 good series as well. However, the Warriors, I wanted to bring them up. They had a tough loss yesterday in overtime. They lost to the Clippers 124 to 119. James Harden and Kawhi Leonard both played really well in this game. James Harden, 39 points, had a double-double, had 10 assists, went 13 of 23 from the field, and Kawhi Leonard had 33 points, 13 of 20 from the field. And then you also had Zubac, who had 22 points. He had 17 rebounds. But yeah, the Warriors, a tough loss there. Jimmy Butler had 30 points for the Warriors. Steph Curry also had 36. Podziemski had 19. Draymond Green had 14. So yeah, they will be in the play-in, and they are taking on the Grizzlies. That'll be tomorrow, 10 p.m. on TNT. And the Warriors have not done well in the play-in. They are 0-3 in play-in games. So, they got to get off the schneid when it comes to that. But that's tough. But it just goes to show you again how jam-packed the Western Conference is. I mean, they could have finished maybe a little bit higher in the standings, but now they're a playing team. So yeah, that's that matchup, and then you got the Kings and the Mavericks. That'll be on Wednesday, 10 p.m. on ESPN. So yeah, no, that's the standings right now. We'll talk more about the games tomorrow as the Spider-Verse effects have taken place here once again. But yeah, it's going to be exciting, and then we'll see what the 1-8 and 2-7 matchups will be. Like I said, we'll go over the play-in games more so tomorrow. We'll get into all that. So 2 games tomorrow, 2 games Wednesday. Actually, to talk about the Nuggets briefly, since Michael Malone was fired, they went on a 3-game winning streak. They beat they beat a play-in team. They beat 2 playoff teams. So, maybe they made the right decision. Nah, I'm not gonna say that, but let's see what they do in the playoffs now. And this Clippers series, it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be tough on both teams. I think this is a series that could potentially go 7 games. I think you're going to see there's some good playoff series. There are. And, maybe not in the Eastern Conference when, the Cavaliers match up against their team and the Celtics match up against their team. But, Warriors, Rockets in the first round potentially, Grizzlies, Thunder. You can kind of see where I'm leaning in these play-in games. I think that's ultimately who's going to get the 7 and the 8. The Eastern Conference is kind of a little bit, up in the air. But, we'll see how it goes. We'll pay attention to these games. And, the rest of the playoff series will, be finalized after Wednesday. But the NBA season has come to an end, the regular season. And now we're in the playoffs. So actually to look at what's been finalized. So you got 4 games on Saturday as of right now. Everything's on ESPN or ABC. So yeah, you got the Bucks and the Pacers. at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Clippers, Nuggets. Then you got the Pistons and the Knicks, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Lakers, Timberwolves is the primetime game. That's at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Sunday, as of right now, I don't actually. Are there any games listed? I guess there's no game listed. So those are the other matchups. But yeah. Let me know what you guys think, though. What series do you think are the best? Which ones are you most excited for? Let me know in the comments. But yeah, like I said, we'll see how they transpire. So we are going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will talk about some football. Joe Flacco being brought back to Cleveland. Browns signed him to a 1-year deal. We'll talk about the impact that has on the Browns draft strategy and what they could potentially do with the number 2 overall pick. I know we talked about that recently, but I feel like with this, you can kind of see where they could be leaning, at least with their first pick. I mean, they could, address the quarterback position later, but we'll talk about all that. We'll talk about, Flacco just coming back to Cleveland, after being there for a bit in 2023. So, yeah, we will get into all that quarterback competition, all that good stuff when we return. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.